This story occurred in 2015. At the time, my wife and I had recently gotten a cabin far up north from where we lived. We intended on going up there to get away from things from time to time. The very first time we went up there, we planned on spending the weekend there, arriving on Friday and leaving on Sunday. It took about 4 hours to get there, and it was a pretty nice place. There was a lake surrounded by wilderness with cabins spread out very far away from each other. We really liked how secluded it was from everything else. Once we got there on Friday afternoon, we did some fishing and then went inside to go to bed. The cabin had pretty much just a little kitchen, a living room, a bathroom, and a bedroom. It wasn't that big at all, but it had a comfortable amount of space. At about midnight, when we were just starting to fall asleep, we heard a knocking at our front door. I had no clue who could be knocking on the door at this time or who would even know that we were here. It was very strange, but I decided to get up and go see. I slowly got out of bed and walked out of the bedroom. By the time I was out of the bedroom and into the living room, the knocking got a lot harder and turned into more of a pounding. This alarmed me a little bit more. The way the cabin was, you couldn't really see outside to the front of it unless you were in the kitchen window. Instead of going straight to the door, I decided to go to the window instead based on how violent the knocks were becoming. I slowly tiptoed to the kitchen window. As I did, the knocks grew even louder. By this time, they were so hard I feared that the door might break. I saw my wife start to come out of the bedroom, and I signaled for her to be quiet. As I looked out the window, all I could see was a large man with his back facing me, pounding on the door. He had to be 6.5 feet tall and weigh at least 250 pounds. He was wearing a hat, and I couldn't get a good look at his face at all. I considered my options of what I could do. I decided to turn on my porch light, hoping that it would scare him off. Looking back, it was probably dumb, but I didn't know what to do. When I turned on the light, the man was unfazed and just kept pounding. I remained sitting on the floor next to the window, just hoping he would go away. Finally, he did. I knew that was the only entrance to the cabin, so I felt relieved. But then, I started to hear pounding coming from the back of the cabin at the wall. My wife and I stayed put in an area where we couldn't be seen. Thankfully, we had shades covering all of our windows. The pounding continued at the rear of the cabin for about 5 minutes and then finally stopped. We sat there waiting for more to start up again somewhere, but it didn't. After about an hour of sitting up and discussing what had just happened, we finally decided to go back to bed. I didn't get a whole lot of sleep that night, and the next morning we went outside and saw that there were marks on our door, as well as the wall at the back of our cabin from the man. There were also some plants that had been trampled. We considered leaving and driving back that day, but decided to stay. After another day of fishing and walking through the woods, we saw no one at all, which was nice, and then we went back to the cabin. We had a relaxing night watching a movie and then went to bed once again at about midnight. Then I heard a knocking on the front door again. As soon as I did, my heart sunk. Once again, the knocking slowly grew louder and louder. We decided to just wait it out and hope that the man didn't break the door down. It lasted for roughly 10 minutes, and finally the man left again. I think I got even less sleep that night. The next morning, my wife and I went outside and saw a piece of paper that was on the ground in front of the door. It had the words "Get Out" written on it. We decided to report what had happened to the police, and after filling out a report with them, we drove home. I don't think anything was found, and we decided to sell the cabin and get another one elsewhere. I'm not sure who the man was, or if it was just someone trying to scare us, but we were enjoying our new cabin much more. A few years back, when I was in college, I used to work real late nights during the summer. I had an internship with a company that was way out in the middle of nowhere. Miles surrounding the area were just woods and fields. About a month into the job, I finished work one night at about 3 in the morning and then got into my car to drive home. It would usually take me about 20 minutes to get back to my temporary apartment that I lived in for the summer. About halfway through the drive, I started to hear my car sputter. It was an old beater because I was in college and I didn't have much money. I did what I could to keep the car going, but it ended up dying and slowly coming to a stop on the side of the road. This road was completely empty, with no other cars in sight, and it was surrounded by a little ditch with woods on both sides. I tried starting the car multiple times, but I realized that it wasn't going to do much good. I wasn't much of a car expert, and I honestly had no clue what to do. I knew it wasn't out of gas, so I decided to call my roadside assistance. I was told due to my location it would take anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour for them to arrive. I decided to play on my phone and watch YouTube videos until they got there, so I took out my headphones and put them in. After I would guess about 15 or 20 minutes, I was interrupted by the sound of my back door trying to be opened. My doors were locked, and I figured the roadside service was there, so I took out my headphones and looked behind me expecting to see a truck, but nothing was there at all. The moon was fairly big that night, so I could see around pretty well due to the light, but I didn't see anybody. I spent a good minute just looking around trying to figure out who was trying to open my door. I knew what I heard, and I wasn't imagining it. Then my eyes scanned around to the woods, and I saw a tree move. When I looked closer, I saw what appeared to be a man digging at the base of a tree just inside the woods. He was wearing a green jacket and appeared to have brown hair and a dark-colored beard. That's all I was able to make out. He was on his knees and digging with his hands. The sight of it gave me a very creepy feeling. The thought of the man possibly trying to get into my car made me even more scared. So many questions went through my head, like who was this man, and why was he in the middle of nowhere digging in the woods with his hands? The man continued to dig for several more minutes. I just sat in my car, being as still as I could, hoping he wouldn't come over to me. This went on for what felt like forever. Finally, I saw headlights behind me and a truck, which was roadside service. When they pulled up, I saw the man turn and go deeper into the woods. But he didn't get up and run. He left on all fours like he was some sort of an animal. I was more than happy to get out of there. And very shortly after that, I got a new car. Hopefully nothing like that ever happens again. This story happened roughly 15 years ago. I was on my way driving back from college. I attended a school in Florida and lived in the Midwest, so it would always be a long drive back home. Usually I would do the trip in 2 days, but on this time I decided to drive through the night. I left my college campus and drove for many hours, only stopping for gas or food or to use the bathroom. I was actually making really good time, and when it got late at night, things got even better because traffic decreased a lot. I stopped and got some energy drinks to keep me up and drove for several hours. Then at about 3 in the morning, my light for gas came on, which usually meant I had about 40 miles before I would run out. I was honestly in the middle of nowhere, so I decided I would stop at the next exit and see if there was a gas station. An exit eventually came up, and I took it. I went right and drove down a very quiet road for a while. It took me maybe 2 or 3 miles, and I didn't really see anything. So I thought about turning around, but then I saw some lights up ahead which looked promising. The road curved a little, and then I came into a small town. The speed limit dropped all the way down to 20 miles per hour, and there were old, run-down-looking buildings on each side. It honestly looked like a ghost town, but I figured they would have to have a gas station, so I slowly kept driving. But the farther I drove, I didn't see any gas station, and then there started to be mainly old houses, so I decided to turn around. I turned into a driveway, and as soon as I did, I saw the front door of the house open. An older-looking man came out and started walking to me. I made a signal with my hands that I was just turning around, and then I started backing out. The man looked a little confused. When I turned around and began driving in the other direction, I saw that 2 more people were standing at the ends of their driveways staring at me with angry looks on their faces. For some reason, it just really freaked me out. I decided to ignore it and keep driving. When I got back to the town, though, it got even worse. There were at least 10 people on each side of the road, in front of the buildings, all staring at me. It was the creepiest thing I've ever seen. They all looked very unfriendly. As I drove the 20 miles per hour speed limit, they started to walk into the road, almost to approach my car. I wasn't sure what else to do, so I sped up and drove faster and faster until I was out of there. I quickly got back onto the main freeway and drove until I saw another exit about 10 miles down the road. It was a close call, but I was able to find a gas station and fill my tank. I drove home after that, and I'm not even sure where that was, but something about that small town at 3 a.m. and all the people in it was just so creepy. It still gives me the chills to think about.